For consultations, tutoring, and courses, please visit laurabaratastrologer.com. And if you like my videos, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Hello everyone. Today's video is going to be about the bhavas, or the houses, and it's a continuation of my last video I did called How to Read a Chart, Parashara Astrology. In that video I talked about the houses and house lords in certain houses and certain planets and houses, and I thought that I would do a series of videos describing the houses in depth. And this video will be about angular houses, or kendras, they're also called. And it's very important because this forms a foundation for Vedic Astrology basics. And as it is with the planets, I'm doing a video for each planet. I want to concentrate on the houses as well and talk about everything they mean, okay? So one aspect of the houses, before I get into the description of each house, and this is going to be just about the angular houses, this video, but before I get into that, I want to talk about something called, or two things. One is called bhavat, bavam, which means the house from the house. And the second aspect I want to talk about is houses from angles. Okay, so the first thing is bhavat, bavam. That means the house from the house. So the house from the house gives secondary indications of a certain house. For example, the first house is the seventh from the seventh. So that will give secondary seventh house indications about the kind of spouse you marry, the people you're attracted to, your experiences with the public, things like that. Your experiences in business relations, because the seventh house rules business. So the first house is a secondary house for the seventh house. Okay? The seventh house is also, or the seventh house is a secondary house of the 10th house, because it is the 10th from the 10th. So it's also going to have secondary indications of your career and your reach, your influence on the world, that type of thing. The fourth house, the third house gives secondary indications of the second house, because it's the second from the second. So look to the third for secondary indications of wealth and resources. The ninth house gives secondary indications from the fifth, because it's the fifth from the fifth, and the fifth rules children and luck and things like that, our creative intelligence. So the ninth house is a secondary house of the fifth, and on and on. You see how that works? So that's what bhavat, bavam is. And it's very important not to leave that out when you are analyzing houses, okay? The second consideration is the houses from angles. For example, the second house is the house of wealth, and the second house from every angle is the gains of that angle. So the second house is the house of wealth that we accumulate. So it's the second from the first. Our bodies accumulate all these resources and our wealth. That's the second house. The second house from the 10th house is the 11th house. And the 11th house is our income that we receive or generate from our career, which is the 10th house. So it's the gains from the career. It's also any awards we win, any type of accolades that we receive from our peers. Anything we receive a recognition for is the 11th house. So it's the gains from the career. Okay? The 8th house, one of the indications of the 8th house is your partner's money or your partner's wealth. So it's the second, so it's the gains from the 7th house, which is the partner. Okay? That's how that works. Now, another example is the 5th house. Parashara says that the 5th house is a fall from royalty. And Gemini says the same thing too. Why is that? You would think the 5th house corresponding to Leo is royalty, but no, it's either the continuation of your legacy or it is the fall from royalty. And royalty is seen from the 10th. The 10th house is our leaders, our politicians, you know, the president, the king, whatever it is. And when it's the 8th from the 10th is the 5th house. So when a 5th house is not looking too good, the person can go through a period where he falls from a height or he falls from royalty. And the height is the 10th house because it's directly overhead. So that's another principle I wanted to talk about and something you might want to look at. And these are all from angles, okay? So yeah, that's something you can analyze in that regard. Okay, so let's start with the 1st house. Now, I'm going to read what Parashara says, exactly what he says, and then I'll translate or I'll interpret it for you, okay? So the 1st house, Parashara says, body and appearance, cognizance and caste, as well as strength and weakness, comfort, pain, and one's own true state are looked at from the Lagna, intersecting bhava. Okay, so the 1st house is, or the ascendant is the sign on the eastern horizon when we're born. And the ascendant-descendant plane is the intersection of the horizontal plane with the earth. And so the ascendant-descendant really shows our body's path or our life's path as we move through life. The ascendant represents our body and the strength or weakness of that body. Any planets in the ascendant will be very prominent in a person's personality, okay? It is a personality factor. And it rules our overall health. Along with the 6th house rules health as well, but the 1st house rules our vitality, you know, that kind of thing, how strong we are, how confident we are. The 1st house is a confidence house. Okay, and yeah, it's basically the chart in miniature. All right, the 1st lord, wherever it's placed, the ascendant lord, wherever that is placed, becomes a very prominent area of life that we focus on, which I mentioned in the last video. Okay, so the 4th house. This is what Parashara says about the 4th house. Vehicles and other such. Relatives, mother, happiness, etc., as well as other such yearning and deposits, land and house are considered from the 4th. Okay, so the 4th is our heart's desire. It represents our mother, you know, things that are dear to our heart. It also rules over pets. It rules over land. It rules over our home. It rules over vehicles, you know, cars, bicycles, boats, any type of vehicle that we own. Okay, it rules emotional satisfaction, emotional security, and happiness. When the 4th house is afflicted, the person can be prone to depression and unhappiness. The 4th house rules things like lakes and ponds and anything underground, because the 4th house is directly down under our feet when we're born. Okay, straight down, as the 4th or the 10th house is directly up over our head. So anything under our feet, so septic tanks, the ponds, the pool is anything holding water, that's also ruled by the 4th house. It rules works of art, believe it or not. The 3rd house is actually creating the work of art. The 3rd house rules artists. But the finished, created work of art that you hang in your home or, you know, whatever it is, that is the 4th house. And like I said, it's bicycles, cars, any type of vehicle. And pets, because pets are dear to our heart. They give us emotional satisfaction. Not livestock, that's another house, but pets. Pets are the 4th house. And so any planet in the 4th house, because it's an angle, will be prominent in the person's personality, but also they will take action with that planet And usually that planet will give them some type of emotional satisfaction or contribute or take away, as the case may be, from their happiness. Okay? All right, so the 7th house. This is what Parashara says about the 7th house. Wife, distant journey, trade, lost sight, and death of one's own body are looked at from the wife house. Okay, a lot of people say, well, I thought the 8th house ruled death. Not necessarily, or not actually, the 8th house rules longevity. So the 8th house does rule death in the sense that it rules how long our life will be. But the 7th house is considered a Maraka house. And the 7th house is the place in the sky where the sun sets. Okay, so the sun is dying, going away. And that's why they contribute the 7th house as being a Maraka, or death-inflicting house. It can cause death, its lord can cause death, and I'll get into that in later videos. It's called Maraka. Maraka means death inflicting. But it also rules the public in general. That's what the 7th house rules, and our relations with the public, our popularity with the public. It rules business, any kind of businesses we start, entrepreneurship and our business relations, the give and take. That is the 7th house. And then the most popular and well-known one is it rules romantic partners and the spouse. So yeah, that's, living overseas. The 7th house particularly denotes if you will live in a foreign country or not, okay? And traveling and to live there is a 7th house thing, and you can see that by the 7th house or by the 7th Lord and also Rahu, okay? Now, the 7th Lord or the planet in the 7th house can cause death if the person is getting up in age and they run a period and that planet is afflicted. Then a lot of times that it's a Maraka house. It's a death-inflicting house. So, like I said before. And then the 7th house also rules over the act of sex or sexual intercourse. The conception it takes for children, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the 7th. Now the 10th house. Parashara says the 10th house is empire, space, occupation, respect, father, absence from home, and obligation are looked at from the sky house. Well, it's easy to see why it's the father, because the father is the figure of power and authority in our lives, and that's what the 10th house rules, power and authority. And politicians, you know, the ruler of the country, the government, all that type of thing. And the father is the 7th, or the 10th house is the 7th from the 4th, which is the mother. So the mother and the father, that's the 7th from each other. So that makes sense. The 9th house is the experience of both of our parents. A lot of people will take the 9th house to be the father, but it's the father in the aspect of him being our guru or our spiritual guide, but it's also the father and the mother in those roles, okay? But the 10th house itself, the 10th house is the father's body, and the father as a person, the father as our authority, okay? It's also, because it's the house of power and authority, it will show our power and authority and our how we affect the world around us and our influence in the world around us and how far we will go in that. The 10th house is the house that gives fame, okay? Now, and it rules over the respect that we receive from other people. It's also a very strong source of power, even more so than the 1st house. Any planets in the 10th house will usually, the person will use that planet to further themselves, further their influence in the world. Okay, and yeah, that's, oh, and the 10th house rules your boss at work. you know, and the any type of person that has direct authority over you, also the government, politicians, that type of thing. All right, so those are the angular houses. Now I want to talk about what else they mean too. Okay, the first house is an angle, but it's also a dharma house, or a house that will further your purpose in life and that will be a source of inspiration for you. That's kind of what dharma means, what it translates as. There's no direct translation of dharma, but that's generally what it means, okay? So that's, the first house is also a dharma house. The fourth house is an angle, but it's also a moksha house, meaning it's a house of enlightenment. And the reason that is, it's a hidden house. The fourth house is directly beneath our feet. We can't see what's in the fourth house when we're born because it's on the other side of the planet. And so it's hidden. Anything in the fourth house has a hidden quality to it. But it's also our emotional state, going through our emotional and psychological state, which is very important on the spiritual path, like I was mentioning before in a previous video. The psychological battle is the most important battle, and our happiness comes from the fourth house. So our happiness is, you know, or the lack thereof, really contributes to how we can focus on a moksha path, or a path that we want to be free of worldly concerns, okay? And which is what the moksha houses do. They try to free us from worldly concerns. And if we're in the home and we're happy and we're content, we don't need to go out into the world and look to get into situations or whatever it is. We can stay at home and be happy and just be with ourselves and be in contemplation, okay? The seventh house is a house of kama, or desire. And these are usually, well, obviously you have a desire for somebody to love you, somebody that's important to you to love you and to desire you back. You also have a desire for sex. You have a desire to interact with the public and be social and have social actions. Those are also seventh house. So the seventh house is an angle, and it's also a kama house, a desire house. The 10th house, probably the most important angle, but also a wealth producing house. It's a wealth house. And you know, because there we use what we have, you know, all of our skills, everything we've learned in the 10th house to create wealth through ourselves, through our influence in the world. And that doesn't necessarily mean money, but it can mean money. But it can mean, you know, respect that we see from others, adulation that we receive from others, the wealth of knowing that we have influence in the world and we can use that influence to get what we want. So, so that is an important wealth house. And also our career is what we do every day. You know, we get up every morning and whatever it is we do, and that's part of our wealth. You know, that is something that we have. That moves us forward in life, that we can rely on to have what we need in our life to meet our needs. Okay, so that's it for the angular houses today, and I'll be doing about these cadent houses and the succedent houses in the next few videos. Okay, yeah, thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.